The live streams for both patch 2.4 and 2.5 have officially been announced, and with that we have Cherish and Haru coming to the limited banners in Persona 5 Phantom X. Now I'll talk about Haru in a separate video because she does have a lot more talking points towards her kit as well as her pull value. So in this video we'll just be talking about the cutest boy, Cherish. Now for all of you Yusuke fans out there, you definitely want to keep an eye out on Masaki because he is one of the best in-slot supports for Yusuke, as he is a defense buffing guardian unit. But for people who don't have Yusuke, is he still worth pulling for? That's the question that I will be answering in this video. So I'll go over his skills, weapons, rev card sets, teams, awarenesses, and give you my overall thoughts on Cherish and whether or not you should pull for him. As always, before this video begins, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more P5X content and more gacha gaming content in general. And also don't forget to consider joining as a member of the channel where you do get exclusive emotes, perks, and all that good stuff for becoming a member. Any support is greatly appreciated, so thank you very much. Now, another disclaimer, again, I am recording this based on the Taiwan region server, as you can see, and any buffs that come onto global will be in a pinned comment if the buffs are significant enough. Also, to address the big elephant in the room, once again, Cherish is another standard banner character that should eventually move to the standard banner after the limited banner ends. But because of how global is working this out, this may or may not actually happen at the half anniversary or 6 months after his release. Who knows? I'll take this into account when I give my overall thoughts on him because he is technically a standard banner character. So just keep that in mind when you're watching the video. Alright, let's start with Masaki's A0 passive and skills. Cherish is a defense scaling shielded tank support unit designed to keep your team alive while also giving additional attack buffs for taking damage. His skill 3 also actually gives a knockdown shield, just like when you face stronger opponents in the game. My, how the tables have turned actually. With his A0 passive, he does have unique mechanics of Upright Mark, Valor, and Justice Oath. So at the start of battle, gives all allies 1 stack of a 12% def scaling shield as Upright Mark. And then you gain 1 Valor when allies with Upright Mark are attacked, and you can gain up to 2 Valor from this per turn. At the start of Masaki's turn, you spend 4 Valor if you have 4 Valor and gain Justice Oath. And then you also give all allies Upright Mark. So essentially, you want to shield your team, and when they take damage, stack Valor through Upright Mark to get into Justice Oath. And then in Justice Oath, you then augment his abilities to achieve additional effects. These effects are your main source of your buffs and to buff units, which you'll get into with his skills. So skill 1, Blessing of Compassion, deal 110% def ice damage to the main target and 33% def ice damage to all other targets, with a 72% base chance to inflict freeze to the main target, and then you restore 2 Valor in this instance. If you are in Justice Oath, additionally increase the main target's damage taken by 1% for every 600 def you have, up to 7.2% for 2 turns. However, if this does happen, you do decrease Valor stacking by 1. So skill 2 gives 1 ally 1 stack of a def scaling shield as Upright Mark. They increase their defense equal to 20% of own defense for 2 turns. When gaining this effect, increase that ally's chance of being attacked by 50% if the HP is above 60%. At the start of your next turn, gives that ally 1 stack of Upright Mark. If you are in the Justice Oath state, increase the shield from Upright Mark by 50%. Skill 3, Prayer of Spirituality, immediately gives all allies 1 stack of a 12% def scaling shield as Upright Mark and 1 stack of def scaling shield as Holy Protection. And Holy Protection is a shield that can take some damage for 3 turns. It cannot stack, and then you basically spend the shield first when taking damage. It's essentially a knockdown shield, just how stronger enemies in this game work. You also give all allies 1 down point, as I said before, and increase their damage as well for 2 turns. Masaki's highlights immediately gives all allies 1 stack of a def scaling shield as Holy Protection, increase all allies damage taken by 23.8% for 2 turns. And then you got his Ascension passives, so Ascension passive 1, Sacrifice, allies shielded by you increases def by 24%, and then Humility, allies shielded by you increases element resistance by 32%. So his basic skill rotation would be to S3 to give all allies a knockdown shield and increase damage dealt. You then use into S1 on turn 2 when your allies take damage to reach 4 Valor stacks, in order to proc Justice Oath to increase target's damage taken as well to keep up the buffs. S2 in this instance won't be that useful as it is essentially a taunt, and most of the time you don't actually want your units tanking that much damage other than Cherish. However, in saying that, this rotation does change when you do have Fox on the team, because Fox actually does want to take damage to proc his counter abilities. So his S2 is like legitimately perfect for Fox. So if you do have Yusuke on your team, you definitely want to use S2 into S3. That would basically be the optimal setup because S2 is the taunt to help Yusuke proc his counter passives and skills while also increasing Yusuke's defense, which he scales off. Then you go into S3 and repeat to refresh the buffs. So this is basically why Cherish is the best in slot support for Yusuke teams, and along with Yukimi, you are essentially doubling his damage output in a way, because you have two different sets of defense buffs that you can give, especially from basically the innate defense buff from the skill, as well as the passive, and then you've also got Yukimi's defense buffs. And I mean, you know, I have to say it, the best offense is a good defense in this instance. So Cherish's weapons are actually a little bit scuffed. So his 5-star is obviously the best in slot, giving him defense increase, which he scales off of additional shielding for upright mark on allies, as well as damage bonus. So his 5-star Medal of Honor increases defense by 45%, increases shield from upright mark by 30%, and then each stack of upright mark additionally increases all allies damage bonus by 8%, which stacks up to 2 times. And then we get his 4-star. His 4-star gives no additional defense, which is really weird because most, if not all, of the 4-star options give the corresponding scaling stat, but less percentage. And shield effect is significantly worse than his 5-star, even at max dupes at 30%, and Forge rank run compared to 16.53% and max Forge rank. Same goes for his own shield effect, which is basically useless considering that S3 is already a massive shield if you already have a lot of defense, and the sword doesn't give a lot of defense anyway. So in my opinion, if you really want to maximize Cherish's shield buffs, especially if you do plan on running him in a Yusuke team, I highly recommend you pull for the weapon. Otherwise, his base kit is good enough as long as you have a crap ton of defense to make up for the lack of defense on the 4-star. Cherish's best card sets are the 4-piece piece set, which gives 20% defense increase on the 2-piece and additional 18% shield effect on the 4-piece. You'll then pair this with the Faith Space card, which gives additional defense after granting a shield up to 3 stacks. This is by far his best combination, as all you want on Cherish is defense and shielding. For main stats and substats, you guessed it, defense, defense, defense. Finally, all those unlucky rolls in defense may come in handy after all. But I mean, let's be honest, now that you're going for defense, you will probably actually end up getting crit. Now, I will say try and get at least a couple of SP% recovery substats in there as well, as in prolonged fights with Cherish, he can definitely have SP issues. Now for the fun section in this guide, let's talk about his absolute best team, which is basically Fox, Yuki, and Puppet. Now, it is pretty self-explanatory. Yuki gives defense to Fox as well as shielding, Cherish gives defense to Fox, and Puppet also, you guessed it, gives defense to Fox. And because Fox is a defense scaling carry, the best offense is a good defense, as I said before, am I right? But seriously though, this team will obliterate any ice content in the game, especially the shield content when Cherish releases, and you will actually legitimately never die with the amount of shielding, buffing, defense buffing that you actually get. So all you Fox lovers out there, P5X is showing you some love, and you should also show Fox some love by pulling Cherish. Now for all other teams, he is a great generic sustain unit if you don't want to run a healer or haven't built the stupid cat. His knockdown shield can be a lifesaver in tough content, and honestly saved my ass a lot when I first played on the Taiwan servers when it didn't lower the palace difficulty at all. This means that it can work with mostly all carries that don't have unique mechanics like Queen or Mesa, which rely on elements and HP respectively. So actually, Misaki really works well with someone like Ryuji. Now, Ryuji does use a lot of HP, but can also output a lot of damage, and his damage is quite generic, which means that with generic buffs from Cherish, you can also use them to buff Ryuji, but you can also keep Ryuji alive with the defense. So it kind of mitigates his weaknesses while also reinforces Ryuji's strengths. Other than that though, even in future patches, for example, with future DPS units, Cherish doesn't really work that well just because of his generic abilities with shielding and whatnot, and the way that P5X is going with the meta, basically future metas and all that sort of stuff, it seems like if you have a sustain unit in your team, unless the content gets significantly harder and or that you really require a sustain unit, you're never really going to need a shielder or a guardian unit at all, again, unless of course you're running Yusuke. Alright, let's go over Misaki's awarenesses and then I'll give my overall thoughts. Now, if I'm being honest, unless you are a massive Cherish fan, I don't recommend pulling for any of these, even as part of investments, as they are just not worth it, like your gems at all, especially with Cherish coming to the standard banner or being a standard banner unit. Even if you don't want to wait, none of the buffs are universal enough to beat out other supports, but I guess if you do have Fox, then possibly if you have a Gamba addiction like me, A1 is good or A3 is good stopping point. So at A1, start a battle, gain 3 Valor, decrease the Valor needed to gain Justice Oath to 3, increase all allies PS by 50%, which is really good for Yusuke. At 2, it's just a skill up. At 3, it's each stack of upright mark gives 50% more defense, counts up to 2 stacks. When upright mark expires, restore 20% remaining shield as HP, which is really good for Yusuke. And I believe these actually do get swapped around. So this is actually probably A2, and this would be the A3. A4 would be your A5, so increase all allies shield received by 30% for 2 turns. A5 will be your generic skill increases. And at A6, when gaining Justice Oath, additionally gain Justice Judgment for 2 turns. When Justice Judgment is active, increase all allies crit rate by 50%, which again, if you do have Misaki at, eventually when it comes to the standard banner and you keep getting him at A6, probably pretty good. But other than that, I definitely wouldn't pull for it for sure. So if you really want to pull for something, A1 is a good stopping point because you just get the additional PS rate, probably good enough. Or you can just go all the way to like A2, for example, which should be the A3 in this regard. Basically, you just get additional defense, which helps with Yusuke's team. Now, in terms of vertical investment, for me, it's definitely A0 and signature weapon for sure. There's really not much else you really need, especially if you are just running Yusuke to basically buff Yusuke up a little bit. That's all you really need. Now, the ultimate question becomes is, should you pull for Cherish? And to be honest, the answer is really depends on if you have Fox or not. If you do, then it is a definite upgrade for Fox and he's the perfect support for him because he basically increases his damage through increasing his defense. Not to mention keeping everyone alive so Fox can actually counter more. Like honestly, his dev buffs for Fox are literally tailor-made for him. This support is literally tailor-made for Yusuke. Like he's literally got a taunt on his S2. Like seriously, talk about a shield support for a unit that really just wants to counter everything. Now, if you don't have Fox, then I definitely would not pull for him at all. For most of the DPSs in this game, and as well as future ones, as I mentioned before, they do not utilize that defense and shield enough, or scaling kit enough to warrant a pull or warrant your gems to actually invest in. Even with the knockdown shield, like I guess it is nice, but most people at this stage of P5X don't even run any sustain units anyway for endgame content. When you chase higher scores, having a sustain unit, you don't want to have a sustain unit because it basically takes up a turn. You definitely want more buffers and debuffers units, and his generic buffs don't really help that many DPS units, especially on global right now. Makoto Queen, for example, is very niche. Same with Mesa is very niche as well. Guess can work with Ryuji, but I mean, you can just slot in Leon for Ryuji 3-4 starter. I'm sure everyone nearly has A6 at the moment. There's just really no justification to pull for a limited unit if you don't have Fox in this instance with Cherish. There are better buffing supports out there as well for Cherish buffs and better sustain units for Cherish shields. So basically, even like Yukimi, for example, is a great 4-star option, or any healer in the game, realistically. With all of this, plus the fact that he is a standard banner character, or supposed to be a standard banner character, it basically gives you all the more reason to save your pulls. But again, if you do have Fox and can't wait for him to get onto the standard banner, then definitely go pull for him. It definitely will improve your Fox damage by a lot, and it basically completes his best team for you right there, which is Cherish, Fox, Yuki, as well as Puppet. And yeah, again, you'll be able to clear all ice content, no issues whatsoever. So thanks for watching everyone, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Please consider subscribing for more P5X content, more gacha content in general, and don't forget to also join as a member of this Gacha Rebels Zephy YouTube channel. Any support is greatly appreciated. I appreciate all of you, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.